This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 80, the movie review of John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
You know, you have to say it like Ian McShane. You have to say, Parabellum.
Parabellum. Ian McShane, I enjoy Ian McShane and everything he does. And it's funny that you mentioned the voice, because he's the one that does, Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu
correct?
Panda, yeah.
Yep. And he's, great as that role.
So that is his name.
He has this, this subtle accent that I just love with Ian McShane. It's so great. I'm so happy that we have his voice for, an hour in Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a really good performance.
Yeah, it really is.
I remember the director, there was a behind the scenes thing with the directors of that movie. And Ian McShane would do his lines, and then he would ask for feedback, and they were just like, it's great. They just didn't really have any notes for him. He'd be like, nice. How was that?
His voice is really perfect for that type of thing, so it's great. It's always nice to be gifted with a very just the perfect voice. There's very few people that have that in Hollywood.
I know, it's a curse, isn't it? Having the perfect voice is a curse.
It's been pretty interesting, man. So what the heck have you been up to, huh? I just had a freaking birthday.
You did.
Older.
So you haven't done any, I don't know, we're not at the point of being middle-aged, but have you had any weird oh man, yeah, I'm only doing this because I'm getting old kind of?
It's so weird when you're starting to get, because I just turned 34, so that everyone knows.
Oh my goodness, you're way young still.
I just turned 34, but the thing is I have a bunch of coworkers that are children. They're in their early 20s, and I'm just every once in a while, something will come up, and I'll mention it. And here's a story as an example, because so one of my coworkers asked me, he was like, there's a movie coming out with Samuel L. Jackson called Shaft. And I was just I looked at it and I'm like, okay, so is this a remake of the Shaft that he played back years ago, or is this or is this a continuation of the story? And he just looked at me I had no idea he didn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
And I'm like, Samuel Jackson has played John Shaft before, years ago. Is it a continuation of that story or not? And he's just well, no, it's it's called Shaft. I don't know anything about it. And I'm like, you're talking about John Shaft from the 70s, where it originally started. It was a blaxploitation movie, and he was just oh yeah, that's what it is. It's a blaxploitation movie. And I'm like, are you unaware that this character has been done over multiple times, right? The original one was Richard Roundtree back in the day in the 70s, and then they remade it with Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson playing John Shaft. And then Christian Bale's in that movie for some weird reason, which, shout out to Jackie. She actually owns that movie because she really likes Christian Bale. I guess she went on this Christian Bale. Yes, right? She really thinks Christian Bale is super attractive. She had this crush on him when she was younger. And so she has all these random Christian Bale movies. You're just why do you have this movie? So she owns stuff like Shaft, Reign of Fire, Newsies, just
oh
random.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, right. Just
Newsies.
Completely random But I remember, like, having that conversation with him, and he was just kind of, like, dumbfounded, because, like, when that movie came out, he was, like, 7 or something like that. So he was just, like, completely unaware that the original movie that had Samuel L. Jackson in it was, like, a thing already. Like, this has already been a thing. And so he couldn't even answer my damn question. And so, like, stuff like that comes up every once in a while, and I'm just like, dang it. Where
you should be able to slap a bitch, right? Because they're 10 years younger than you, and they don't know what they're talking about. And this is exactly why it's ridiculous when guys turn, like, 50 or whatever, and they start dating 20-year-olds.
Yes.
Like, girls who are young enough to be their daughters, and, like...
Yep.
What do you even have to talk about? And I know that they're not talking about anything, right? But it's just like it's that ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
So if you do something like that, I'm gonna slap you.
There's no way
I'm gonna show up. I'm not even gonna say anything. I'll just slap you.
Nice, and I would respect that. There's no way I would do anything like that.
Then we would go get pizza and beer after, right?
Nice. Oh, well, that would be fantastic.
I'll pay, but I'm gonna need to sleep on your couch.
That's fair.
I'm already letting you know.
It's just awful.
Plus, that would have to happen over Jackie's dead body, so there's...
Well, yeah, obviously. There's, like, no way I'm taken. Not going any other place currently. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
Right, for our one stalker who seems to know how cute you are.
Right? How did that even happen?
You are a good-looking black man, I would say. So...
Ah, dang it, Jones. Freaking take it. So, did you have anything to talk about in terms of trailers or anything? Anything you're excited about? Anything you want to talk about?
You know, there is one thing I can talk about because we went and saw it, and I do not want to do a podcast on it.
Oh my god!
Yesterday, Annie and I went and saw Brightburn, and I was so disappointed.
Oh man, I was gonna watch Brightburn. How? Okay, so let's hear it.
So I can do sort of a spoiler free. Like, here's the thing, because James Gunn was involved, I had really high hopes for it, and it's really billed as being sort of like a dark Superman, a dark take on Clark Kent. Yeah. But for me, the problem is it's one note the entire time. There's never any, like, they try to show why, you know, the little boy is like so pissed off at the world and everything, but there's never any point where you're wondering if he's going to be redeemable. So it's just a dark film completely from the beginning to the end. Okay. And I think there needed to be more of a question of whether or not he's a character. I also really didn't like his performance. I thought the two parents were amazing in the movie, but I thought they didn't give him enough as a character to work off of. And he's genuinely terrifying once he puts on his little homemade mask and cape, and the film is surprisingly gory. I mean, it's uncomfortably gory.
Well, when I was looking at the trailers, the fact that there was a lack of footage, because there's a lot of lack of footage of him as a character, so I assumed that there had to have been something they were hiding, and it sounds like the gore is what they were hiding.
Yeah,
so that makes sense to me.
It's shocking. There's one scene that was so shocking that I think Annie and I were just looking away, I kept looking at the screen because I couldn't like it was just to the point where it was like, oh my god, that's what kind of movie this is.
That's so weird to even think that, because we're going to, in a little while here, we're going to start talking about John Wick 3, which is a pretty brutal movie.
Right. Well, this is brutal it's entirely in a different way. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good warning. Is it the same level as? Oh man, I can't believe I'm bringing this up. But when you remember the intro to like the Hardcore Henry movie, is it like that level?
I think it's. I think it's in its own way. It's different. It's different because there's a kid causing this stuff to happen.
That's okay.
And
that makes more sense.
Snapping on people that he's supposed to love, but he doesn't really love anyone. So
okay.
I think it's just a little different.
That's fair. That's crazy, man. I wasn't expecting it to be like overly violent, but I guess it makes sense in terms of this character. The thing that I was expecting, and I haven't read this yet, but one of the stories I would like to read is, if you ever heard of Red Sun. Have you heard of Red Sun?
No.
I believe it's called Red Sun, but it's a DC like standalone thing where the difference between where Clark Kent lands. So where Kal-El ends up is Russia instead of America and Kansas.
Oh, wow.
And so his upbringing is completely different because he's like taken over by the government, and he turns into like this, he's like a weapon instead of anything else, and it's like this standalone story. And I haven't read it yet, but I remember Mark telling me how great that storyline is. It's just like it's the only kind of comic books I can even read anymore. Like, they've gotten so out of control with all their crazy stories. I can only do the standalone runs that are like short if I'm going to read anything.
Or it's a complete arc.
Yeah, it's just a complete arc and it's done. I can only do those now. I cannot do the main characters with their normal storylines throughout the universe anymore. It's just too much effort. But I always thought it was going to be closer to that.
You know, I mean, they definitely, like, I feel like the way that it was written, the way that it was shot and everything, they wanted to go very dark with it. And I think that they were missing, I mean, it's basically a horror superpower movie. I mean, it's in the horror genre. But I think that there is a part of me that wanted to, like, I don't have a problem with a movie not having a happily ever after or something like that, you know. And this is without me spoiling anything. So if that's going to be your goal, that's fine. But I think there needs to be just a little bit more layers in there. And you know, I think they tried with the parents, but I don't think they cast the right kid as Brightburn. But then I just don't think they did enough with his character. I would have liked to see a little bit more with him.
All right, well, that definitely sounds disappointing. So, I guess that makes sense. Jeez, man,
it's a Netflix movie, I think.
Okay,
so
that's fair. That's definitely fair. All right, well, if there's nothing else you want to talk about,
no,
we can go ahead and get into John Wick 3.
Let's do it.
This is basically, usually I have a synopsis to do or whatever, but this is basically just the continuation of the John Wick storyline, which has been quite the fun endeavor since the first one going up to this one. It's been just really interesting. So basically this is just the continuation of that story where at the end of John Wick 2 he's running away and it starts right back immediately right where that is. So where the second one ends, that's where the third one begins. So the movie's directed by the same guy. It's Chad Stahelski, and of course we know Keanu Reeves, but what's really nice is they added in Halle Berry as Sophia, who actually is a pretty interesting character to throw in there. They also added Mark Dacascos as Zero, who was the kind of like the fan of John Wick towards the end of this, or throughout this movie, that was like hunting him down. And I don't know if you remember Mark Dacascos.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of incarnations of Iron Chef.
Sure,
and
that's the watered down version of Mark.
Yes,
but,
he's had a very prominent career as like a martial artist, and the thing that I wanted to bring up, because this is what I always do, is things like Iron Chef America. He also he played Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat Legacy. You remember that series?
Oh god!
And I don't know if you remember this, but this is what I thought of when I saw him on screen, because I'm a huge fan of this video game. But do you remember Double Dragon, the really terrible
Vaguely.
1994
I
movie.
remember. I remember the scene where the girl shows up in the shorts. That's the scene I remember, and then the rest of it I blacked out on. I think that blew my mind, and then I just that's just me being really honest.
Well, that's fair. The thing is, that movie came out in like 94, so right around that time period, you're starting to notice girls. That's one of those things.
Yeah.
But but the thing that's so funny is he plays Jimmy Lee.
Oh God, he does. He was so young. You're naming all the like I'm expecting you to name.
Yes.
Like the movie where he fought with Jet Li, and like he's an incredible martial artist. But yeah,
he's amazing.
He's done some really bizarre things.
Oh yeah. I always like to talk about the more obscure things that these actors have done. And the one that I thought of, no kidding, was definitely Double Dragon. And I'm like, man, he was in Double Dragon a lot. Like, that's what I remembered when I saw him.
He was in Double Dragon. Damn.
He was Jimmy Lee. He was the brother. And it's just like, and so I actually like looked up pictures of him. And I'm just like, man, he's like, first of all, he hasn't aged much at all. And it probably helps because he's bald in this movie. But he looks very young. And it's just like, man, he's just got like this ridiculous hair. Oh, man, it's just so crazy. The only other character that I really want to bring up that was added on to this cast was Asia Kate Dillin, who's the adjudicator.
Okay.
And yeah, and the only thing I remember her from is actually Orange is the New Black. I don't remember seeing her in anything else. So that's like all I have.
Well, I want to talk about her in a little bit when we get into likes and quirks, for sure. I've never seen her in anything before, so.
Really? You haven't seen her? Did you not watch Orange is the New Black?
I think I've only ever seen the first episode.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It gets really good, then it gets crazy, and then I haven't watched like the latest season or whatever, but it's pretty good. The first few seasons are pretty good.
My life up here is so different because of the shows that Annie enjoys.
Yes.
I find myself really liking these terrible, trashy shows that she puts on.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're not really hitting up Netflix as often, but I am going to make her get into Stranger Things, so that is going to have to happen. It's like, you're an 80s baby, you'll like this, you're watching it.
I am amazed at how this is a thing, but there are so many people that really like the trashy TVs. It's like
ridiculous.
It's like it's an escapism thing.
It is. It is.
Oh,
like,
man. I've watched
so much Life After
TV.
Lockup is one of them.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
You're just like, what is 90 Day Fiance? What is wrong with these people? But then you kind of look at how Annie and I first met, and it's like, well, we kind of met in a circumstance where I'm sure a lot of our family members were like, what the hell are you two doing?
Oh, I'm sure.
So, I mean, we could have been a couple on one of those shows. And
nice.
So anyway, it's just like...
Oh, man. Unbelievable, Jones.
All right. Just edit all that out. I don't want anyone to know what I just said.
We'll see.
We'll just do a jump cut.
Nope. This has to be in there. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man. Damn it.
All right, Jones. Let's take a break.
Quick break, yes. So we're going to reset.
And then we're going to come back and then break this movie down.
Perks and likes. All right.
All right, Jones, we're back here with the Quirks and Likes section, so let's go ahead and get into this. So, I don't have a lot of quirks with this movie. I really enjoyed John Wick 3, and I think, I just guess I'm going to go ahead and say that I think it's probably the lesser of the three movies, but...
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But with that said, I still think it's a really good movie, and I have more questions than anything else that I just want to discuss with you, because I'm kind of curious, because at the end of John Wick 2, the thing that I left the movie thinking about after I saw John Wick 3, I had a question about Winston. So Winston essentially betrays him at the end of this movie, of John Wick 3, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious if this was a plan all along or not, because the thing that I noticed and I'll have to ask you about this, but I'm pretty sure that Winston gives him a marker at the end of John Wick 2.
Yes, he does.
So that marker is not mentioned at all in John Wick 3.
It is. It is mentioned.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking you.
Not in a way that I thought it was going to be used.
Okay, so how is it brought up? Because I might have missed this. Okay. So this is why it's a question. I was like, what happened?
Okay, the reason why Sophia agreed to help him is so the marker that we thought was a blank marker so that John Wick could receive help was not a blank marker. It was the marker on file between John and Sophia. So Sophia was actually in John's debt because John got her daughter out of there, got her a new identity. So the high table would not be able to hold that over Sophia's head. I did not.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So there is a scene where they're talking about being even. And Sophia says, after this, we're not even close to being even. But John stamps his thumb on the other side of the already stained marker and gives it back to her. So she is, after helping him, she is out of his debt.
Okay.
So that's how it was used in this movie.
Okay, so I would have to watch John Wick 2 again to refer this, because I could have sworn he didn't just give him a marker, but he put his mark on it. Like, I thought that's what happened at John Wick 2, but I haven't seen John Wick 2 since it was released.
No, but I didn't know it was a used marker. So
that's what I'm saying. I thought he had put his mark on it at the end of that movie, but what you're saying that he gave him a marker that was already used, which I think is weird for that to even occur, because I guess I assumed that the marker that he had inside the book was an old marker. I didn't think that was the new marker that Winston gave him.
Oh,
because at the end of the movie, at the end of John Wick 2, he gives him the marker and immediately runs away. He doesn't have time to place it in a book.
Okay. Yeah, that might.
So that's where I was like, well, wait a minute. The marker that was in the book was Sophia's marker.
Yeah.
So my impression was that Winston still gave him a marker.
No, wait a minute. There wasn't a marker in the book. He went to the book to get those beads.
No, the beads were in there. There was more coins in there, and I could have sworn there was that marker in there also.
I don't believe that's the case.
I'd have to rewatch. Okay, I'd have to rewatch this movie. We might be both wrong on this. I don't know.
I don't believe the marker was in there. There were coins in there, and there was the rosary, and that's what he went to get out of the book. He already had the marker. I could have sworn there was another marker in there. I mean, there could have been, but the way that I read it was the marker that Winston gave him, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense for it to be Winston's marker because he couldn't offer John any more help. So
yeah, he gave him an hour.
He gave him an hour, but he couldn't offer the services of the Continental New York.
No.
So that was to get John out of trouble, but essentially Winston would have known there was only one place for him to go, and that was to Sophia. So
yeah, that makes more sense to me in terms of the story. So then that means that Winston, because I was thinking when I left the movie that, oh crap, so wait a minute, is this like a plan thing? Because Winston gave him a marker earlier, but you're saying that was the marker he gave him was Sophia's marker. So that makes more sense that Winston has just outright betrayed John.
Right, yeah. Well,
it just is what it is.
But, I mean, he could have... I mean, this could have just been a play for him to get a higher seat to actually join the high table at some point.
Yeah, which is possible, too. Yeah. We don't know. And so, with that said, the only other question I have, it's not really a question, it's just a statement, but I was unaware that there was more to this story with John Wick. I thought there was going to be 3 movies, but... Clearly, there's another movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's supposed to be released in 2021, which is just like the worst. It's like, gotta wait another 2 years to get this continuation of the story that I've been really excited about pretty much through the whole sequence. I've absolutely loved how John Wick has come to be throughout this whole process. So I don't really have any others. Like, I just have, like, these little tiny quirks throughout the movie, so I just want to kind of get your opinion on your quirks on this movie.
Okay, let's see here. There were 2 that... So there were 2 new characters in this that...
Yes.
The Elder, who has a brief scene, and the Adjudicator, who... Adjudicator, thank you.
Yes.
I promised myself I would say it correctly. I'm just going to call her the adjunct.
Nice.
Like I play adjudicator, right? Okay.
Yes, adjudicator.
So she has a bigger part in this. And, she's a decent thorn in everyone's side. And although she's not a physical threat, she certainly gets her pound of flesh by using Zero because she has the full weight of the high table behind her, and she's simply allowed to leave unscathed, which I thought was not in the spirit of John Wick whatsoever.
That's fair.
I really thought she should have died, and if not in this movie, definitely in the next one.
I mean, she might die in the next movie. The thing is this is absolutely brought up in the movie because she definitely mentions, she's like, another one will be set in my place or something like that. So, like, killing her is just kind of a useless endeavor anyway. But I would understand why you would do that. It's just that she isn't a loose end that needs to be tied up. She's an adjudicator. And there are a ton of adjudicators, apparently. So it doesn't really matter what they do with her. It just doesn't. Just another one will be replaced. And so I definitely know that gets mentioned in the movie. Because I was always wondering, why don't they just off?
Right, yeah.
But I mean...
She's just chilling in the hotel the whole time.
Yeah, she's just chilling in the hotel. So it's like, well, what the heck, man? There's so many time pairs where there's just like a gun in their hand and she's like right there. It's just like, take her out. But it doesn't really matter. There's no way to do it. And I don't know how much of that has to do with John Wick kind of dealing with his consequences anyway, because the one overlying thing through this whole movie is consequences, which is one of the things I liked about this movie. And he definitely is trying to, like, figure out what he's going to do next, and which is why he goes in search of the Elder and all that and everything. So he can see the person at the top of the table that's above the table.
So that was the other thing that I had I actually had a pretty big issue with it. I thought the Elder was really underwhelming. You hear about the high table, and there's one person who's above it, and he's just a nomad in the desert who is miraculously up to speed on what's happening, up to the second. And there's no cell towers out there. How is he staying informed when it takes him at least a full day to receive updates? He can only be found when he wants to be found. And, I can't even use my cell phone to play Clash Royale in the theater because it can't get through the damn ceiling. And yet he's, trending on Twitter with all the hashtags and these different gangs getting taken out by John Wick. And Annie mentioned this to me, that she thought it was really odd that he had a suit ready to go. And the thing is, Annie did not see the other two movies. She thought the trailer for this looked good, and she went with me, and she loved it. And so I started telling her about the other two movies, and we're going to have to go back in and watch them. But
oh, that's so crazy. Jackie's friend went to go see this movie without seeing the other two also. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
But it's good. It's like what do you say? But that got me kind of thinking, like, so he had the suit ready to go. We know that John Wick's the best one they've ever had. Like, could he have put those events in the very first movie? Like, it's really weird that, you know, the strangers follow him. They take out his dog. They take his car. It seems like it almost could have been pushed by some other hand that they needed to do this. And I was hoping for some kind of tie-in, but it's not quite that, you know, it's not quite that web. So I thought it was really interesting that you said to me that you thought maybe they were setting something up with Winston. And I think that's pretty interesting, because maybe there is something under the surface, you know, to where it could be bigger. It could all come together in John Wick 4.
Yeah, it absolutely could. And it wouldn't surprise me if the High Table is trying to push John back into the business, and this started from the very, very beginning. It's entirely possible for that to happen, because he was the one that got out. Well, maybe you never get out, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
And it's entirely possible
they have
that this
rules
was all
in place,
set up.
but if they don't want you to leave, you know.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that gets fixed in 4, where there actually is this overarching thing that really caused all these issues from the beginning. It's entirely possible.
So, my last quirk is, you know, the fall really should have killed him. I know it's John Wick, but he takes a ridiculous tumble, and he just survives.
That is definitely one of my quirks. That's just like a little quirk.
Right.
It's like it is quite the stumble. Like it's like oh my gosh. So he gets shot multiple times, and then when he falls, he hits like 4 different things on the way down, and then lands. You're just like, oh my gosh. Oh man, I do really enjoy the adjudicator leaving, because I'm like, I was really pissed at this scene when it happened. I'm like, it's John Wick. Why the hell wouldn't you check if he's dead? That's so stupid. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and it would really piss me off in this movie. Like, that was going to be one of my major quirks, and sure enough, as she walks out, she's like, and then she, like, turns and looks, and she's like, John Wick's gone, and I'm like, thank you, do not just not assume. I always hate when movies assume someone's dead. It's just like, what the hell? It's freaking John Wick, you know? I was gonna be irate if she got into that car and just drove off. I was gonna be irate. I'm like, you kidding me? This is one of those things that I hate when movies do this. You always make sure you see there's a body, right, and make sure they're dead.
Well, isn't that how every teen horror movie starts off, where they run someone down and they're sworn to secrecy, but they don't really check to see if the guy's dead or not. So of course he's coming back.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things that I cannot stand. So I was so happy, because when she left, and when she just walked away from Winston after that fall, I'm like, are you kidding me? You're not going to check and see John Wick
is dead? I would have come back with his head. And,
right?
Or cloned him or something. Like, you know.
Right? You absolutely... Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah,
so it was nice to see, like, this shot where she, like, looks to the side and then she goes down the alley, and I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you.
I agree with you. Really cool. All right, so that's really it for me as far as quirks go. Amazingly, in a movie like this, I'm light on in this category.
What's so strange, and that's what's so great about this whole John Wick series, everybody could listen to our first John Wick podcast, a John Wick 2 podcast, and this one. Our quirks are very light. This is a really good series.
It is.
Considering it's basically just like an action shoot-'em-up type movie. But it has all this extra stuff in there that I just love. And I just love the order that they're doing it in. Like, you kind of really get to know John Wick as a character in the first one. And you get these little tiny hints of, like, a bigger world. So you have these, like, the coins that he pays for in the first movie. You're just like, oh, wait a minute. This is a currency that doesn't exist anywhere. What's going on with this? And that's like the only thing you really get with that. And you get like somebody saying there's rules. So you get Winston saying there's rules or something like that within the first movie. But then when you go to the second movie, you get even more expansive. He starts going outside of New York City. And then you're just like, wow, this is like a global thing. This is like a global group of assassins. And that all of these rules are in place. And I think in this movie, they do the exact same thing where they expand the universe even more. Because you really don't know about the High Table and all this until this movie. So it's just like seeing these layers peel throughout all of the movies. I've loved every second of it. And it's really awesome to see that in kind of just a shoot 'em up action movie. Because that's basically all it is. But it has all this extra little stuff that makes it better than the other ones.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, it's just like, so great. I absolutely love it. So, I mean, that's one of my likes, the peeling of the layers and having all this extra stuff in here. But for me to continue on is I really enjoyed that he's brought up that Baba Yaga is brought up multiple times.
Ah, yes. You know, I didn't even write that down, but the Boogeyman.
The Boogeyman.
Yeah.
So they refer to him as the Baba Yaga more than once, and I don't think they really talked about that in John Wick 2, but it's absolutely brought up in John Wick 1 as they introduce his character, and having them say it again is so great. And I love the conversation with Winston, where he's just like, well, tell me how you want to die, you know, or how do you want to do this? You know, you going to be the Baba Yaga or are you going to be this? And I just love, like, those sort of conversations that he has throughout this movie. And I just really enjoyed them bringing up the Baba Yaga again. Sophia and the dogs, I loved all the sequences with her.
Yes.
Like, adding Halle Berry into this mix. And, I mean, Halle Berry's been doing some bad movies lately, so seeing her show up in a movie
that you like,
that I like, is great. Because Halle Berry's like, she's a really charismatic actor. She's like a really charming, charismatic actor. Yet she has like such, like, she just gets like locked into these contracts where she just has to make terrible, terrible movies.
Right.
And so seeing her show up in this movie, you're just like, she's, like, so good in this. Like, I love all the sequences with her. I love that they have the two dogs in this movie that she has. And I absolutely love the scene where he shoots her freaking dog, where Bronn from Game of Thrones shoots her dog. And she specifically mentions it. He's like, John Wick tells her don't. And then he goes, he shot my dog, and then he's just like, I get it, and then bam,
and then there's a shootout. It's like, there's the exchange, how they both say their lines, I think is perfect.
Yes.
Like,
so
obviously they're not going to walk away, and the stuff with the dogs was just amazing because she had to train with them for like 2 months. And,
I bet.
And Keanu wasn't even allowed to make eye contact with them.
Nice.
So it just, the way that it was shot and filmed and everything, you saw how someone like a different technique, how someone like John chose to fight. And it's just, it totally changes everything, and that was one of my likes too, is that, even though it's the third movie, we're seeing new things being incorporated.
Exactly. It's great. It's just absolutely fantastic. So I just thoroughly enjoyed that. One of the things I really enjoy is I also enjoyed again with the expansion of the universe, having this the adjudicator in the high table. And I'm just going to mention that because it sounds like you have a lot of things to say about that. So I'm just going to bypass that, and then I'm going to say my last quirk, or my last like, and that's, I thoroughly enjoyed seeing Mad Dog from The Raid fight again versus John Wick in that last scene, in those last sequences right before he has to take out Zero. I just love it.
Is that the...
Mad Dog, it's The Raid. He's Mad Dog from The Raid. He's the bad guy.
Right.
From The Raid. And The Raid's just a phenomenal action movie. If you want to watch just like a throwaway action film with tons of martial arts, The Raid is where it's at. And this guy who plays one of the Shinobi 1 character, it's either 1 or 2, it's an Indonesian martial artist, and he shows up in Force Awakens also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't do anything in Force Awakens, which disappointed the crap out of me.
The thing,
he's like this awesome martial artist.
The thing is, the reason why those guys are in it is they were the fight team that train Adam and Daisy. So,
yes.
So they're the martial artists in the last two. Those are the fight teams in the last two movies.
Yes. Yep.
So that's why they had that cameo
from them. Yeah, you just don't see anything from them. Like, you don't see them in it doing anything. So it was nice to see them, see him fight again in this movie, because he always plays like this really brutal martial artist, and you got that again in this movie. So that was my last quirk, because it was just nice to see that again. And so let's go with your likes.
So, I like that the fight sequences, they're different in each film. And they've really evolved. Like, they're entertaining, but, it doesn't parody the other movies. So I really thought that was refreshing. You get John Wick on a horse, which I know Annie loved because she grew up riding horses. But, I mean, nice. I thought the whole scene with the motorcycle ninjas, I mean, visually, what a fun and cool scene to happen.
Yeah.
And I really like that, towards the end, and I know they're not called elites, but essentially when the SWAT team shows up, they've got armor that John Wick can't really just bypass. He can't just shoot him in the head. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. They've been paying attention. This shows they've been paying attention, and it's like another level. It's another layer. So I really thought that was cool.
Yes, and I even, when I was watching this movie, I like to equate that as when he does those levels, when he goes through this whole sequence, he essentially starts on the bottom level. And so he goes up, and then everything gets more difficult. It was very, very similar to how a video game plays out. And I remember watching this, and I'm like, this is really cool, because it's one of those things where I've played so many video games where this is a thing, where you're just like, you go through massive amounts of enemies, and then the style that you've been playing in, when you get to towards the end, they do things like that. So now they have armor on them. You can't bite them, you can't defeat them the way you used to. And then after that, you have to go to the more advanced level, and then you go to the bad guy. And so, it was, really cool. I just, equated it to that. I was like, this feels like a video game. And I just thought that was really cool. Seeing it visually in a movie was great.
I thought it was cool that, one of the things that's kind of a running, I don't want to say running gag, but, is that a lot of these assassins really have respect for John Wick. And so when he's fighting the two twins or whatever they're called, I thought it was really interesting that they, that there was a show of respect. And so as a result, he doesn't kill them because they could, there is a scene where they could have killed him, but they didn't because they wanted to fight him. So they absolutely had the upper hand. And so as a result, John spared him. And I mean, there's little stuff like that just rounds out the whole thing, where it isn't just an action movie. They take care of those elements really well. But there's, it's just, there are all these little eye candy moments where it's like, this is so cool. You never see this kind of thing happen, even in these movies.
Yes, and it also has this really... It kind of rounds out John Wick as more of a character also, which is also mentioned by Zero, where he's just like, that's the thing about you, John. I wouldn't have stopped. So it's like, there's certain scenes like that in this movie where you show that John Wick actually has some sort of compassion throughout these movies. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in John Wick, the first one, is where he deals with Kevin Nash.
God, yep, Kevin Nash scene.
The Kevin Nash scene where he's just like, he clearly has the upper hand on Kevin Nash, and he asks him, so they're in there, I gotta go in here. And he lets him go. He like puts his gun down, and then Kevin Nash's response is, "Thank you, Mr. Wick," right. And then like walks away. Yep. And I love that scene. And so you get more of that here, where John Wick really, he's a brutal assassin, but he has this like extra layer of compassion where he's just like, I don't have to kill these people if I don't want to. And so there's a lot of things like that in this movie. Even him leaving, when he leaves on the motorcycle, he like purposely goes onto a bridge that's closed, so that, and then he leaves back, so to endanger less people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like he like purposely goes to this bridge that's closed, and then they do their fight, and then he leaves. And so it's just like certain stuff like that is not really outwardly said, but it shows you that this character himself has this extra little layer of compassion where he's like not just completely a soulless killer. And that's what's so great about this character.
And then it ties, and then it does make a whole lot of sense as far as when you see why some people are sticking their necks out, like the Bowery King.
Yes.
So the sequence with him in the movie and then at the very end now all of a sudden makes a whole lot more sense, because
yes,
John Wick gave him a choice and basically gave him a chance to save his own life. And yeah. Laurence Fishburne's character never really forgot that.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. I thought Mark Dacascos was amazing. I love seeing him in things, especially when he gets to show off his martial arts background. But he always plays really entertaining characters. And the thing that I've liked is there's been something unique about a lot of the bad guys that they've introduced. And I thought they really stepped things up in the second movie with Common and Ruby Rose. Yes. I thought, I really liked
John Wick 2.
I really liked that in John Wick 2. And so
yeah,
I thought it was keeping in the same spirit that we don't just have mirrors of what we've seen. There's different, this bad guy, Zero, really had a different style to him. And even, the two other guys before who we were talking about, they had their own, they were killing other assassins just to get a chance to fight John Wick, which is just which is bonkers if you think about if you think about that, oh my goodness, I know everyone wants 14 million, but they don't even seem like they want the 14 million. No, they just want the right to fight him.
Yes.
And I really love the scene, and this is so unique to John Wick, the idea that a good guy and a bad guy could potentially have to sit and have a drink with each other, knowing full well that they're going to have to fight at the end of the movie. And we get this in the other John Wick movies, and so I love that Zero just goes and sits right next to him, and John Wick is incredibly uncomfortable like that, so he just moves to a solo chair. He just moves to a regular chair because he doesn't want to sit next to Zero. And I'm just like, that's awesome. That would be like Batman great. Getting up and moving because the Joker sat right next to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Winston's betrayal really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting, and I find it even better now that you mentioned, this could have been his plan the entire from the second movie, because he he did offer John as much help as he could.
Yep.
There's a lot of little things in here though that I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish. I love that when he goes to see the doctor is insisting that he shoots him twice, because no one's going to believe that he stopped helping, and John's, but you did, like John doesn't want to hurt this guy, but he has to. He has no choice to. There's little stuff like that. I would love to see Sophia return. That was her and the dogs were, I think, just one of the, visually and stylistically, it was one of the coolest things to see. In the movie was her working with her two dogs, and I would love to see her return if it makes sense. If they can bring her in, I think that would be great to see in the fourth chapter. And I actually thought that this was the best one that they've done so far. So
oh really?
So that kind of so I know you're thinking it's not.
I think it's the lesser of the three.
Okay,
for sure.
All right.
But the thing is this is one of those conversations that I have with when we bring up something like How to Train Your Dragon, where, the first one's an A+, the second one is an A, and the third one is an A-. So, you know what I mean? It's like we're splitting hairs here. They're all great movies. So it's like, it's not like I'm saying it's a lesser movie in terms of not enjoying it or not liking it. It's still up there with the rest of them. And I just think it's not as good as the other two. And I'm really curious to see how it plays out as it continues. I don't even know how many they're going to do now. I thought the third one was the last one, but I think
Keanu says that he'll continue to do them as long as people are going to show up.
People are going to show up. As far as I know, it's doing fairly well. So, I mean, it's because they're good movies. And the thing that's funny is you have people like Annie and people like Jackie and her friend who haven't really seen all of them, but they see this third one and like it. It's just like, well, I feel like the fan base is just getting bigger.
Who would never who would never go to see this kind of movie are going to see it because it's really well done. Yeah,
it is really well done, and it's really great, and I love that it's doing so well, and I hope the fan base continues, and I hope the quality continues into the next one. I would love it.
All right, that's it for me. Was there anything else that we missed here?
I mean, the movie's great. I think we could just go ahead and rate it. I mean, I definitely think it's a see it and buy it. I actually can't wait. I already have the first and the second one. I own both of them, but I really hope that there's like a pack when this is all done, and I will just buy the whole pack.
And it should be like an ancient looking text or something. Like it should come in John Wick's book,
right? That would be so cool. Yeah, that would be really so cool. Yeah, I'm totally gonna buy the whole thing. So I say see it, buy it. I love this movie, and the only other thing I can say, other than everything we've already discussed about how it's good, is one of the things that we haven't discussed in this one specifically is the visual quality of the movies has been consistent throughout. When we first watched the first John Wick movie, the way the lighting's done and the way everything's shot is just really cool. And it continues in the second one, and it continues in this one. And I hope it keeps going. I just love the way everything looks and feels, the way that the director does this. So that's the only other thing I can say that I like about it. But I'm going to say see it, buy it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to say see it, buy it as well. It's outstanding, and it's amazing that... the genre is largely dead. It isn't like every once in a while there's something that comes out, like when the first Expendables movie came out, and that is nowhere near as good as John Wick, but
no, it's not.
There's a rush to, oh wow, we can go and see action movies again. Yes. But this one, in a way, I think it attracts people who don't normally see these kind of movies anyway. So a genre that's dead when it's really well done, and I would say that like when horror movies are really well done, they can attract people who don't normally go and see horror movies.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where, you know, because I don't really enjoy going to those movies, and in fact, when we have discussions about what we're going to see, you know, I would be game for it too. I thought it was outstanding. I know Annie won't go and see it, even though I've told her that it's actually a really well done movie.
It is.
I can appreciate those, you know, when they're truly outstanding. So I know we need to have a little discussion here about what the next film is going to be, but yeah.
It's this one's very unique. This series has been unique, and I agree. It definitely gets people to see this genre of movie that normally people wouldn't see, and I think that that's very telling about how good this is. And so I've never been so excited about a series. Like, I watched the first John Wick randomly because people said it was good, and I'm like, I'll give it a watch. And then I loved it. Watched the second one, loved it. Watched the third one, loved it. And I've been excited every time. So I watched the first John Wick, I'm like, this movie's really good. And then see the second one, I was excited about seeing it. And I saw the second one, and then I was still excited about seeing the third one. And now that I've seen the third one, I'm still excited about seeing the fourth one. I'm like ready, like that doesn't happen very often at all in a series of movies. So it's just like, it's so great. It's a very unique experience, and I think everybody should see it, and I think it should make a ton more money. Like, I'm like, I wish this movie, like this series, would get like the like $800 million, you know. That's all I do, because it's like so good. It's so good. It's a great experience. It really is. All right, Joe, so you want to sign out then?
Yeah. So what are we doing? Yeah, let's sign off, and then we'll talk next
week.
Yeah,
because we had to discuss that. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and sign out. So if anybody wants to contact us, we always have our website at halfpastpodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
We're on iTunes, Google Play, and we're on Spotify.
We're also on Stitcher, Libsyn, and TuneIn. I love my Stitcher app.
Yeah, you always love Stitcher.
I do love Stitcher.
halfpastcast@gmail.com is our email, so that's halfpastcast@gmail.com, and just let us know you're listening.
It's because some other jackass took halfpastpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, right?
We should just shoot him an email like, hey, we want this. What's it gonna take?
Yeah, right?
Jerk?
I think it should happen.
Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
And I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and it's always great to do these podcasts, and so just thank everybody for listening, and thank everybody for the support. And if you haven't, please go and listen to John Wick 1 and 2, and it's these movies have been great, and watch all of them, and listen to the podcast. It's awesome. So the next thing that we need to discuss is which movie are we doing next, and I have no idea which one that we're going to do next.
Ringing the doorbell.
At all. Nice.
Did you? So that'll be fun. Let's see. Well, the next one is so let's see. May. Oh wait, X-Men. When's the next X-Men? Dark Phoenix, whatever.
Dark Phoenix. Yes.
Okay, so that's out June 6th. Are you down to see the last of the Fox X-Men?
Yeah, let's do that one. Are we not going to do Godzilla King of Monsters?
Okay, so the thing there is...
That one already came out. That one's
already out. And I know I can't drag Annie to that one. Because she grew up hating Godzilla movies.
Nice.
I think Dark Phoenix makes a whole lot of sense for us to talk about that and to talk about the whole series.
Yep. Let's do that. So the next movie we'll do will be Dark Phoenix. Okay. So we'll get Dark Phoenix done, and that'll probably be released in a couple weeks here.
Sounds good, buddy. Good.
All right. So I guess we're done. So this is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.